moving your eyes up and down, and just like, as a singer, we're singing to the camera, on Friday. Yeah. So we're
Okay, okay, folks, we are live here for the Ripple Effect on Tuesday, October 27th. I'm actually on location here out of town, but I'm coming to you from California here. We're out in the valley, out in Fair Oaks. So David Kirsten and we welcome a special guest today, Kimberly Vaughan. Am I pronouncing that name right, Kimberly?
That's right. Kimberly Vaughan. Yes.
Perfect. We have Kimberly Vaughan, who's a virtual events planner, talk about a timely profession to be in these days. And at first, I want to just introduce my co-host, Erica Gimbel, to tell us about Kimberly, how you guys met, and you actually participated in a very important event last weekend, the Virtual Women's Fair, which we had you discuss last week on the Ripple Effect. So it's great to close the loop on that event. And I'll turn it over to you, Erica.
Okay. Thank you, David Kirsten of Wide Angle Media. We so appreciate getting to be on the Ripple Effect today. That's what this is, the Ripple Effect, where little things become big things. And usually they're healthy things or empowering things. So yes, I'm Erica Gimbel. I'm a therapist here in Oakland, California, originally from New York. If you detect any accent, yes, I'm from New York. And today we have Kimberly Vaughan on with us, who just was the mastermind behind this amazing weekend event. I'm so excited that you're here to talk with us today, and just how things are shaking down since this amazing 2-day event called the Successful Women of America Virtual Fair that I was a speaker for, thanks to Dr. Beth and you, Kimberly. So Kimberly Vaughan, welcome to the Ripple Effect. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, David and Erica. I had to take yesterday off from the weekend because it was such an awesome weekend. I took all day yesterday. So this is like the perfect kickoff to be with both of you here today. I appreciate it. It's my kickoff for the week, and I couldn't ask for a better one. Thank you.
Great. I'm so glad you could pop on after that. And so we really want to tell everybody about what just happened. Who are you? Who were you before COVID? I'm giving you a ton of questions, but just start with, what's your background and tell us your story.
Well, I guess we'll do the PCK, the pre-COVID Kimberly to start with.
Yeah.
Before COVID, I was producing conferences and trade shows and conventions, and self-producing 20 live events a year with the International Wedding Festival, which is an amazing event in itself in the wedding industry, and really celebrating love in all of its many forms, and nuptials and fashion and food and all the fun things that everyone loves about the wedding industry. So that really was my world before COVID, that and Successful Women of America, of course. And I also have a national website in the wedding industry. And so I keep pretty busy.
Yeah. So just break that down for us. What is Successful Women of America? Like, what is that? And how can tell us about that? How did that get birthed? And tell us about your.
That is a really interesting story, and that I unfortunately experienced a pretty horrific car accident. I'll just start there. Head through the windshield with the seatbelt on, the whole 9 yards, injuries, surgeries, the whole 9 yards. And it really put me on the sidelines of what I was doing before. And I had a whole different career prior to my accident. And when things like that happen, it kind of strips you a little bit of your identity. When you feel your career being put on the side, it strips you of, when you're a career oriented person, that's a big sum of who you are. And so I had to, I call it, rebuild my brain and reconnect my brain and remap my brain, and learned a lot about neurological science. but one of the bigger takeaways that I had of this was, since I felt I was being somewhat stripped of my career and my identity within my career, I really had a moment of, who am I? What am I? If I'm going to remap and reconfigure myself, put myself back together, what do I want myself to be on the other side of this? And it really led me on this beautiful path of self-discovery of, what do I like? What don't I like? What am I passionate about? Where do I want to go with all of this? And the unfortunate reality of it is that I had some effects from the accident. I stuttered when I spoke. I couldn't complete sentences. There was a lot going on. And I didn't trust being in the human world and needed to rely on the technology to hide behind, and namely Facebook groups. Thank you, Facebook, for this. I was able to gather a lot of women in our community together, and we started posting a lot of exercises for one another to help ourselves go on a path of self-discovery. And then they invited friends, and then they invited friends, and after a while we became a group of 1,000. And then I just said, we've got a really good thing going on here. Let's get together. Let's meet. Let's see what we can, do in a room with all these powerful women, and nurture and grow together. Let's share our gifts. And we did. And the first evening that we met, we welcomed 110 women to the room. And it was my first time getting in front of people again, with a microphone in my hand, stuttering and all. And it was so empowering, and I felt so safe. And my whole experience with this group and these amazing women was that there's no one area of our life that can dictate our success as a woman, or our success as a human, for that matter. So it's really important for us to celebrate every area of our life. And big and small celebrations, all of those little intricacies and things that we carry with us, need to be celebrated and need acknowledgement. So that is what Successful Women of America is about. It's really about the whole woman concept, and really celebrating all areas of our lives. So the group in itself is not business centric. It truly is women centric. And so we talk about everything. We talk about health and nutrition, and health and wealth and prosperity and children and family, and everything under the sun. So
Beautiful. I didn't know that background, that story, and that's so pops for me. And then how did the California virtual women's, was it California, or was it just virtual women's fair?
the virtual women's fair, and my background with conventions and trade shows, really lent itself in this scenario. Excuse me, as COVID happened, everyone was pivoting in their business, pivoting in their personal life. We've all made such dramatic shifts in every role of our being, right? So that was also true for Successful Women of America. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our mission really is to educate and empower women through educational and speaking opportunities, through connections and referrals. So we had to really rethink our presence. And it just so happened that because of COVID and losing my ability to self-produce and work with conventions and conferences, that I built a platform, and it's called Virtually Events, because we're virtually together. So it's Virtually Events. And I put together this platform primarily to take care of the 300 plus clients we have with the International Wedding Festival. We're in the wedding industry. It's important for them to be able to really set themselves apart visually, and so they needed a place to really brand themselves, which meant the show needed a place to brand itself. And just like everyone else who's putting on events, they're trying to pivot. They're trying to figure out what platform to use, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense.
Wow.
For me as a producer, I did the whole shopping experience. I sat in a million gazillion demos. I was trying to figure out, okay, for these 300 plus clients that we have with the IWF, what is the best scenario? Is it Zoom, which is an incredible experience? Is it, V Fair, is it Expo Pass? There's so many different opportunities and options out there. The problem was at the beginning of COVID, there wasn't any roadmap to help you figure out what was going to be best for your budget and your audio and visual needs and your brandability and things like that. And my index finger tends to be one that points to the most expensive thing just on any given day, that just does that. Bad. So my first experience went straight to the most expensive platform, and it was like avatars and all this really cool brandability, and of course I was sold, and then I got the price tag and went, oh my God, that's not in our budget. So the more that we started looking at what was within our budget, the more things lost that brandability that I was looking for the events and for our clients. And that meant we just have to build our own. And so, we hired a developer and made the investment, and we're so happy with it. So, our clients can go in there and they can really brand themselves in their own booth space, in their own virtual space.
Yeah.
And
I love that I could jump in there, and I'm still figuring it out, but I mean, that's the talk that I gave on ripple effect last week was about coming to speak with you, and I had that beautiful picture that your team created, SWFA, speaker, and my title of my talk. It's beautiful. What a beautiful platform you all created. Beautiful. So and I love hearing more about what went into this to get it to be this beautiful. And I know there's, it's still a work in progress, but it's wonderful to see what you created.
thanks. I'm pretty happy with our organization and how we were able to pivot. We put 4 projects and programs together to respond to COVID as an event production company, and for our clients to still gain the leads that they need to keep their doors open and still respond to couples and their questions, because engaged couples have lots of questions right now. And so we needed to create connectivity. So we put together some really great programs, the virtual platform being one of them. And that was very exciting. So I think as it kind of came together and we ran our first few events on our own, self-producing, I of course wanted to share the good news with a few other producers in our industry. One of them being my mentor, and I contacted her and said, "What's your plan? What's your strategy?" And she kind of didn't have one, and I said, "I think I'm onto something. Let's give this a whirl." And I took her on a tour, and she loved it, and she's been hosting her events on the platform, and then we've entered into the travel industry and entered into some other industries, helping other promoters and producers. So at that point, it was like, okay, this could do more. This platform could be versatile, and it could do more. And so because of my passion for Successful Women of America, it was like, we need to donate the platform to the organization and figure out how we can curate our platform to meet the needs of our nonprofit organization, as a provider. And that's where you came in, Erica, because this really was our first opportunity to have live presenters and an auction hall and an art gallery, and just it went beyond convention space and booth trade show space to a much more live existence. It was so cool.
It's so cool. And if people are just joining us, we are talking about this 2-day event, virtual event that just happened, swofa.org. And you can actually go there and see what just happened, right? And you can still donate. Your ticket can still donate to the 3 causes that you were sponsoring, right? And you can still be part of like looking at the art that was offered and getting the benefit of all the beautiful speakers that were happening on Saturday and Sunday, right? And I'm excited to keep the conversation going with those presenters. So
yeah, I'd love to go in there and check it out. I know Erica got me a ticket actually, and I wasn't able to join, so I regret that. But I'd love to check out that platform. I admire what you've done with that, and I know here in the Bay Area, there's a lot of people that come from all over for the conferences and events in the Bay Area. but those still have to happen in some form long term. So I think you can be of a lot of help to a lot of other people too, just to know about you and your experience and your story. So I did want to just ask you what you see going on in the virtual event space these days, and how you might be able to help those folks, or if you have advice for other conferences. Maybe it's the carpenters, or the medical tech equipment folks, whatever it may be, who are wondering, well, can I do the event virtually? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. And when people are thinking about putting a virtual event together and looking at platforms, it's just like uh, going out and hunting out your venue, right? So some venues are small, some venues are large, some come with audio and visual, some don't. Some have catering on site, some don't. So there's no one size fits all, and that'll be the first thing that I say. You're going to have to do a little bit of research to figure out what fits in your budget, what meets all of your needs, whether you're looking for something that's customized and curated specifically for your industry or for your event, for your attendees, or if you're looking for something that's more, stand and go, and just very easy to click a few buttons and get it on out there in a hurry, so more turnaround. And so i I would also say that from an AV perspective, you're going to want to figure out whether you're looking at recorded messaging or live messaging. That's going to be a really important question for you, whether you want them to be able to chat. Like, I would write a list of the things that you want people to be able to do. Are you looking to have engagement and integration between yourself and your attendees, your vendors and your attendees? What do you want that to look like? Make your full wish list before you really go into the cost of things. And then it makes sense, look at, the grand, big platforms that have all the bells and whistles, and look at those costs, and dream big, figure out what you really want it to be able to do. Think about the possibilities that it could be. We do this when we plan weddings and events all the time. We dream big, we've got this big giant list, and then we just start narrowing things down to match our budget, right? And that was where we were at, as a promoter and a producer, and I think that's where most people are at. And then go from there and plan on really spending some time with demos. There's no wrong question, with these platforms. Don't assume that one platform can achieve something without asking the question, because they're all different. So that would be my biggest advice. Now,
Thanks.
I did want to share with you, and David, I know you're in the industry. I think a lot of people are questioning the future of these event platforms, of the virtual event platforms, and what does that look like for people? Are we going to be virtual forever? Are we going back to live and that's the end of virtual? I think for myself and most of our clients, we're going to go hybrid, and I think that that's a really good way to go, even with trade shows and conventions. Going hybrid with your booths and with your speakers, and making sure, even when the governors of every state say, hey folks, the water's fine, come on in, I think that there are going to be a lot of both vendors and attendees who aren't ready. For their own personal reasons, they're not going to be ready, and just to have that option available to them. We did speak with a friend of ours who produces an event in Dallas, Texas. And in Texas, the governor, until just recently, was very, come on by, everything's great, just go to any event that you like. They really hadn't put a lot of restrictions on there. And her experience in that kind of environment, with very little restriction, was 30% of booth sales and 30% of attendance. So that tells me that in a market where there are no restrictions, she really saw a drop. And having a virtual platform to accompany her live event, she probably could have captured another 30 to 50% of her vendors and attendees. So I think that's how we're going to go.
Yeah, sounds very smart and safe. Giving
Yeah,
options, people like options, and to err on the side of safety, why not?
why
We're
not?
the second wave is still coming, or it's come, and
Yeah.
it's just a matter of where you are on in the North America, unfortunately. Um, so fascinating. This is so fascinating. So for somebody who I'm like an up and come, I'm a beginner speaker getting my speaking on. And in the past week, I had 3 speaking engagements. Yours was the third. And
Congratulations.
and there were other really seasoned speakers on the platform this past weekend. So what do you want to say to those amazing people who are looking to, I want to speak more now. I got the bug, and my coach is saying, keep on going. I want to speak in every state. So what do you say to that? What are some of your suggestions, Kimberly?
So, for people who are speakers, whether you're seasoned or new, you know, you're going to do the same networking that you were doing prior to COVID. The wonderful thing is that without so much restriction in travel budget for a lot of these promoters, they can really kind of broaden the scope of how many speakers they can have. They can extend their dates of their conferences and really get more content rich hours in their events, right? Which means more speakers, which means more opportunities, you know. So I would say get out there, talk with these promoters. They're seeking out wonderful speakers. And I tell you, the last weekend was so content rich that being on the tech side and having the front row seat to listen to what everyone's messages were was like the best weekend I've had in years. It was fantastic. So these are great opportunities. And, you know, from a community perspective, we've got to stay connected. And there's so much negativity out there. There's just so much that, you know, as a country we're dealing with, as a world we're dealing with, as humans we're dealing with. And to attend these conferences and invest in ourselves, invest in our communities, and be connected, it's a must. And everyone's out there and they're doing it. Some people feel zoomed to death, but you can't escape your desire to connect and you can't escape your desire to grow. So if you've got a message out there, share your gift. Get it out there. People are really wanting it.
Yeah, I have a couple of points to make, and that, I'm actually planning a virtual event on December 1st. And, I also, as a videographer, work on, helping develop speakers both over video. But I find once you do it good on video, you can go speak virtually anywhere. So it's really, speaking is really the most important skill as a business owner that you can develop. And I just see a huge opportunity with these virtual events. One for promoters, but to get new speakers that and just have a lot more quality speakers sharing stories and experiences that would not be shared otherwise, pre-COVID. So I think there's a big silver lining. And, I see with Erica and her growth as a public speaker. And, also this podcast is really a COVID podcast that leads into other virtual events. So we're very excited. And some of the insights that you've shared, that was, well put about some of those benefits. And I did want to just ask you if you have any events coming up. You mentioned a wedding showcase. Is there something else we might want to look out from you coming up to attend?
Yes. So we're just ending our season of bridal shows and wedding festivals and wedding fairs. We're just ending that season, and the new season starts in January because most couples get engaged over the holidays. So January 1st is just like woohoo! It's fantastic. It's the launch of the season. It's so much fun. And our website, internationalweddingfestival.com. I think we've got 10 upcoming events posted there, and I know that the Successful Women of America board resumes and regroups on Thursday, and we're going to be figuring out the next time to come together and bring these amazing speakers I did want to share one thing because Erica's name came up, and I want for speakers to remember that we're in this virtual world, which gives you a little bit of freedom to move around the cabin, so to speak, and you're not stuck right in front of your computer to do these presentations. You can take them on a tour. And one of the delightful things that Erica did is she took everyone on a tour of these beautiful gardens that she has,
Yes.
and they're vertical. And we saw her little
Yeah.
seedlings and they were growing. And I just feel like it gave so much more education and more of a feeling of being there, more of an educational feeling to just move around the world with her and have an insight into her world. There's a personable feeling about that. So I wanted to
That was
share
so
that.
fun. I loved saying, "Welcome to my garden." And I got to
Yes.
show it off. And it was, there was several speakers that shared their slides. I wasn't as comfortable with that doing that technically. So I figured go with what I know. And it was so great to be able to do that. So thank you for that creativity and flexibility. That was really fun. And in the end, I didn't even turn on my Ethernet cable, this thing. Like it worked okay. It was a miracle because afterwards I'm like, oh, I didn't even turn that on. Oh shoot, I had 100 feet of cord.
That's awesome.
So funny. So yeah, it was such a great experience. So thank you. I highly recommend people reach out to you, Kimberly Vaughan, to find out more about all that you're doing, your offerings, your service to the world. You said that you raised the most money at this event for the three nonprofits. That's so amazing.
Yep,
And
this was our biggest fundraiser for the year yet, and it was just, gosh, what a great gift to share so much rich information in our community. So it was such a win on so many levels, on a personal level and as an organization. When you're a nonprofit in the midst of what's happening in COVID, every nonprofit is going through fundraising woes right now, and they're struggling. And their desires to get in their community and do more right now are 100 times greater right now, considering the crisis that we're in, with more limited resources and less fundraising opportunities. So I just can't even tell you what a great experience last weekend was on many levels.
it was so great to be part of it. And thank you so much for being on the Ripple Effect today with us, David
I
Kirsten.
Yeah, I
And
just had one thing before we wrap up, Erica, if
oh,
you don't
yeah,
mind.
go for it.
And you're welcome to make a closing comment after as well. Um, are there particular people or organizations that would be your ideal client that you're most wanting to work with? I do know there's a huge need in the nonprofit community here in Oakland, the Bay Area. That sounds like a segment, but could you just tell us, if there's a listener out there and they're thinking, well, is this person right for me? Who are you looking for as the right fit for you to work with, Kimberly?
We're not a cookie cutter platform. So we're looking for organizations that really want to have a curated experience. They want to have an individual look. They want that brandability. And conferences, trade shows, conventions, the booth aspect of the platform is what people are really excited about. So if you've got 100, 300, 1,000 vendors that typically are participating in your live event, then this is going to be a great resource for you. And then we have our auditoriums where we can do recorded messages and live messages. We do live streaming. We have our own platform there, and so that's been really wonderful. And with the fundraising, we can do very exciting things, like the auction hall and we did this art gallery, which was fantastic. People are missing out on the connection between art and community. It's like art is the lost art right now. So, it's really great to be able to have that connection. And, so we were able to take the platform and really curate it to the needs of successful women of America versus what we do in more of a convention and conference setting. So we've got some flexibility, but I would say conferences, conventions, nonprofits looking at fundraising, that's really going to be our niche.
Excellent. And Erica, did you have a closing comment, or do you want to close this out?
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for bringing the light. You lit up the world for so many of us over this past weekend, Kimberly Vaughan, and I'm so excited for what we create next with you. Like I'm a yes. So thank you so much for all you're doing. Yeah, ripple effect. We're rippling here. Yes.
I'm already dreaming and thinking about the next event with SW of A, and just dreaming and planning, what do we want to do? And I foresee a workshop and a little bit more hands-on and interaction, and I can't wait. So after this call, we should schedule some time and let's start dreaming.
Okay,
Let's do it. Well, thanks, Kimberly Vaughan with Virtually Events, for coming on. We'll put the links to those 2 events we mentioned in the chat box, so you can see an example of some of her work and exciting stuff. Great to have you on, and we'll talk soon. We'll stay on and talk offline right when we end the broadcast. So
Sounds
thanks a lot.
great.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
everyone next week for the Ripple Effect.